Hey, Larry here. Acts 29 today. I want to welcome you to this edition, coming to you from World Headquarters in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So, welcome everyone from Thailand and around the world. Today we're going to continue on with the second part of my testimony, my mom's testimony. And last week, I left you with the party that my mom was throwing at the kitchen table, where she actually ended up throwing her glass of wine into my dad's face. And then I decided that, you know what, that was enough for me, so I left, and then I stayed with a friend of mine from high school. I stayed with his family and I lived with them for my whole senior year. And during my senior year, you know, I was hanging out with the partiers and we were getting into some drugs now and, you know, smoking, drinking, drugging, partying, and that was my life, you know, in my senior year, and then all the trouble at home and stuff. But even with all that, I did manage to graduate from high school in the top 10% of the lower 1/3 of my class. I'll give you a few seconds for that to sink in. Then the deal is that was in 1967, and so in 1967 we were in the middle of a war conflict in Vietnam. And so my famous uncle, Uncle Sam, the United States government, wanted to draft me into the Army and give me a free trip to Southeast Asia to fight in an absolute worthless war that stole 58 to 60,000 of young men's lives for absolutely nothing. So by 67, you know, we had all figured out that the war in Vietnam was not what they were saying it was. And so we really didn't want to go fight for nothing as far as we could tell. So we tried different ways to get out of it, but we went to the draft physical, which we all had to do. We dropped acid before we went. We were hiring a kite and just barely even made it through the whole physical thing, and they said, hey, you guys are great, you're good to go. Passed with flying colors. But what I had done is my brother was in the Army National Guard in Oregon, and so he talked me into joining the Guard before I graduated from high school. So I ended up in the Army National Guard based in Portland there, and that kept me, they couldn't draft me because I was already in the military. So I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, call it Fort Lost in the Woods. It was in the middle of winter. They also call it Little Korea because it gets so stinking cold there. I've never been so cold in all my life. But I made it through boot camp and then AIT, Advanced Infantry Training, but I was in an engineering outfit, so I learned how to operate heavy equipment. And when I got back to Portland from there, all the heavy equipment was gone, and I was like, where's all the stuff? You know, where's all the equipment? What's going on? And they said, oh, well, while you were gone, they changed our outfit from an engineering outfit to a infantry outfit, and there's a good chance we'll get called up to go to Vietnam. I was like, you kidding me? I didn't sign up for this. And so in my rebellious way, I said, well, I didn't sign up for this. They said, well, we don't care what you signed up for. This is what it is, and it is what it is. And I said, oh, well, okay. So I didn't go to any of the drills. I was supposed to go to one weekend drill a month and then summer camp for 2 weeks in the summer. I didn't go to anything. I didn't go to drills. I didn't go to summer camp. I didn't go to nothing. I just stayed home and partied and drinking and drugging, and I thought I found my calling in life. You know, I love the party lifestyle, and that was my life. And I was staying with my friend that I'd stayed with in high school, and my mom had called his house one day and said that the National Guard had called and they wanted me to come over and report for riot control duty because there were some riots in Portland in those days. So I didn't go. I didn't show up. Well, that night, you know, we'd gone out drinking and went to drive-in or whatever, so I was pulling into his driveway about midnight or later, and all of a sudden some lights came on in the driveway from a car, and my friend said, "That's your mom." And I'm like, what do you mean, my mom? He said, "That's your mom in the car." So I backed out of the driveway and took off out in the countryside. Well, my mom chased us in the car. So we had a high-speed chase. Except I had a 57 Ford with a V8 and she had a Mercury Comet or something with like a 6-cylinder. So I come flying over the top of a hill, and I knew on the other side was a road to the right. And so I flew over the top of the hill, turned out the lights, took a 90-degree right and floored it. I looked in my mirror and boom, there she went, right on by, never even slowed down. So we went to another friend's house and parked the car behind the barn and stayed there that night. I found out later she had gone back to my friend's house, called the police, had the police looking for us and all that. So a few days later, I thought, well, I'll stop by the house. You know, she's obviously cooled off by now. So I came in and she was still very upset with me and stuff, and I just walked by her and opened the door to the stairway that went up to my room. And before I could step through onto the stairs, all of a sudden I fell in kind of slow motion to my knees on the ground, on the floor. And I'm on my knees, barely conscious, and I see all these little stars of different colors floating around in space right in front of my eyes. And I thought, wow, those cartoons are right, you know. They always showed when somebody got hit over the head, these little stars floating around different colors, and there they were. Just big as life. They were floating around, and I was watching them. And so those disappeared in a few seconds, and then I kind of regained consciousness and stood up, and I turned around, and my mom was standing there with this wine bottle in her hand, a Manischewitz wine bottle, and those things are super thick. She had hit me over the back of the head with this wine bottle, almost knocked me out. Well, as I was thinking about this, that was probably the wine bottle from that little party she threw, you know, the year before. So I looked at her and I was so stinking mad. I was about ready to choke her out. And she saw the look in my eye and she turned around and started running. And she ran out the back. I chased her out the back of the house. She ran outside and headed for the barn. And then I just stopped and said, you know, this is ridiculous. She's crazy. And I'm getting out of here. So I left. Well, not long after that, I had not gone to drills or anything in the National Guard for a year, and so the next thing you know, I get a letter from my dear Uncle Sam in the mail, It's actually from the Army, and they said you're to report to Fort Lewis for active duty in 30 days. And, you know, you're going to be going to Vietnam. So I thought, wow, you know, I am really in trouble now. So I didn't know what to do for sure. I thought about going to Canada, but it's too cold. And so I didn't know what to do, but I for sure wasn't going back in the Army deal. So I had about 2 weeks left, and a friend of mine called the house, and I happened to be there, and he said, get down to the Navy recruiter just as fast as you can. So I jumped in the car, drove down to all the recruiters were in the same place in those days in Vancouver. So I went in, and he was at the Navy recruiter's desk, and I said, what's going on? Navy recruiter said, well, hey, you know what, you guys, and this guy had done the same thing I had. He hadn't gone to any meetings or done anything for a year. And he said, well, you guys are already in the military. And he said, you know, most people don't know this, but you can change branches of military. You can transfer from one to the other. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He said, I can have you in San Diego in boot camp in the Navy for 4 years, active duty, in 7 days. I said, man, sign me up. Where do I sign? I signed the paper. 7 days, I'm in San Diego going to another boot camp. Although this one was a piece of cake compared to the Army one. So I'm in San Diego, I'm in the Navy. You know, I'm in the Navy for 4 years. So I went to boot camp there. I got into aviation, and they sent me to Miramar, which is just outside of San Diego a little ways. Miramar Naval Air Station. And that happens to be the place where they actually filmed most of Top Gun with Tom Cruise, was at that Naval Air Station where I was stationed. And the squadron I was in, VF-121, was a training squadron where they brought new pilots from Pensacola and trained them on the F-4s, and then we'd go out on carriers and they'd practice out there. So I was on the Ranger and the Kitty Hawk for different periods of time. But that squadron I was in became the Top Gun squadron not long after I got out of the Navy. So now I'm in the Navy. I'm doing a lot of drugs. I'm making a lot of drug contacts, and you know, that's my life. And so I wasn't in contact much with my parents or at home during any of that time. I think I might have went home once in like 3 years on leave, but you know, I didn't know really what was going on there at all, and I got a few letters from them, but that was about it. So I wasn't really sure, you know, what was happening up there, but there was a lot of things happening up there that I didn't know about. And so next week, or on the next edition, we will get into what happened when I got out of the Navy, because one day I found my name on a list, and I was an early out. I got out 8 months early. Go figure. And so I jumped on that and got out of the Navy. So next time we'll continue on, and bless you, and I'll see you on the next video.